Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is August 19th. Keeping an ornamental garden looking good in August is a lot like keeping house. There's always tidying to do. But I think the garden is way easier and more satisfying because a clean house lasts about 10 minutes, whereas a clean garden lasts for days. And all week long, every time I walk past, after I've worked in it, I smile. So here's what I find myself doing these August mornings. I grab a basket and some pruners, and I wander down the paths, past the she shed, to work on all the waiting perennials, all along the fence line. I snip off the old blossoms, I pluck yellowing leaves, and everything goes into the basket, and then to the yard waste site later. And that's it. No big project, no master plan. But in 30 minutes, the garden looks noticeably prettier. That said, the roses get extra attention in August. I rake up every leaf that's dropped, and I snip off any that are covered in black spots. Black spot is the bane of every Midwestern rose grower. The fungus overwinters in the fallen leaves, and come spring, it splashes right back up onto the plant. So I'm spending lots of time clearing away all those leaves right now, so that next June's growth comes up clean. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1771 that the Edinburgh botanist James Robertson walked to the top of Ben Nevis. He was out on a mission for John Hope, the king's botanist, who had sent him to survey the plants of the highlands. James climbed mountains because that's where the plants were. In all, he's credited with the first recorded ascent of 13 different mountains, and every one of them was made while he was out hunting for plants. Ben Nevis is the highest mountain in Britain, and at the top, James said, he found nothing but a heap of stones. And it was on this day in 1908 that the American poet Josephine Jacobsen was born way ahead of schedule in Cobourg, Ontario, while her parents were on vacation. She weighed just 2.5 pounds and often said, "I must have been a fierce particle." After her father died when she was 5, her mother struggled with her mental health, and the family moved constantly, which is why Josephine had no regular schooling until she was 14. Her debut collection of poems was released when she was in her 30s, but she wasn't widely known until decades after that. She was 63 when the Library of Congress made her its poetry consultant, and she worked well into her 90s. One of her more gardeny poems is called Next Summer. It's about the seed catalogues that arrive every February, promising a cornucopia of blossoms, everything from anemones and nasturtiums to poppies and morning glories. But the man these catalogues are addressed to has sadly just lost both his house and his garden. And when the catalogues finally arrive, he throws them all out without opening a single one. And it was on this day in 1928 that the English journalist Bernard Levin was born in London. His father was a tailor who walked away from the family, so Bernard was raised by his mom and by his grandparents, who'd all come over from Lithuania. Scholarships opened doors for him, and he grew up to be a columnist for the Times. When he died, they called him the most famous journalist of his day. But there was a moment in the 1970s when Bernard acquired a window box. He wrote about it in his column and warned his readers that if they ran into him or heard him muttering about sheep and blossom and the weather, they should not be alarmed. He announced, "I have acquired a window box and gone spectacularly horticultural overnight." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, A Year in a Small Garden by Frances Tophill. Frances is one of the presenters on Gardener's World, and this book follows her through the first year of her garden behind a terraced house in Devon. It's not a big space, and that's the point. The old advice for anyone with a new garden is to wait a full year before you change anything. But that's not what Frances did, because the filming schedule couldn't wait. So the book is honest about the joys of starting before you're ready, which is how most of us start anyway. It also ventures out past her fence to the small community plots she works with, where the same problems turn up on a much bigger scale and have more capable hands to solve them. What Frances builds in that first year is a greenhouse out of salvaged window frames and old doors, a pond for wildlife, and beds where the food and the flowers are growing in the same ground. It turns out that a small garden asks a gardener all the same questions as a big one, only sooner. A Year in a Small Garden by Frances Tophill. A first year written down while it was happening, before anybody knew how it would turn out. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1848 that Gustave Caillebotte was born in Paris. His family was rich, so he never had to sell a painting to make ends meet. But he did spend a good deal of his own money buying art from his friends when no one else would. He also supported them when they needed it, even paying Monet's studio rent. And he was a special patron of Renoir, offering prices no one else would have even considered. At the age of 28, Gustave lost his younger brother, and it spurred him to write his own will. He trusted Renoir to see it through. In it, he left his entire collection of Impressionist paintings to the people of France, predicting that the work only needed more time to be discovered and loved. He said he guessed it would take 20 years or more, and he was right. As for himself, Gustave's paintings were hard-edged and exact, very different from the Impressionist works he had adored right from the start. His most famous work is of a man looking out over a Paris street after a rain. The long straight lines reflect the fact that by training, Gustave was in fact an engineer. But he'd grown up with gardens, and when he was 12, his family had bought a place at Hyères, south of Paris. It even had a kitchen garden and a greenhouse. And it was nestled among 11 hectares along the River Hyères, with an orangery, an aviary, an ice house, and a chapel to boot. The family called it the Kazan, which translates to casino. It was for their pleasure, after all. And over the next 2 decades, Gustave painted the gardens of the Kazan so thoroughly that now, over 100 years later, the estate was able to recreate the plantings almost verbatim. In 1881, Gustave and his brother pooled their money to buy a property on the Seine at Petit-Gennevier, where he built a greenhouse for himself and filled it with orchids, which were the flower obsession of the time. And his friend Claude Monet lived right across the water. Gustave and Claude went to all the flower shows together. They also loved to visit plant breeders and often wrote each other letters about seed and soil, sharing what had come up and what didn't, keeping each other going, the way gardeners often do. They did the same thing with art. Gustave bought Monet's painting called Red Chrysanthemums, and eventually, in turn, he sent back a painting he made of the same plant. Near the end of his life, Gustave stopped painting cityscapes like Paris and seated himself right inside the garden to paint flowers among the flowers, so that half his canvases were filled with stems and leaves. And that's how the man who had built his career painting the straight lines and the vanishing points of the city of light ended up painting the humble blossoms of the garden after all. Then, on a February morning in 1894, when he was out in the garden once again, just another day with the flowers, he suddenly collapsed and was gone. He was 45 years old. Renoir carried out his wishes, and today we think of Gustave Caillebotte as a painter who gardened. But in the end, I think it would be just as true to say he was a gardener who painted what he had learned to see. That was Gustave Caillebotte, who was a trained lawyer and an engineer, and also a champion yachtsman and a designer of racing boats. The magnificent art collection he left the people of France included Monets, Renoirs, Pissarros, and pastels by Degas. It took 2 years of machinations before the state accepted his gift, and now all the paintings are at the Musée d'Orsay. And there's one side note worth mentioning. None of Gustave Caillebotte's own paintings were in the original gift. It was Renoir who thought to include them, so that he'd always be remembered as a painter, and not just the man who helped subsidize his friends. Today's book was A Year in a Small Garden by Frances Tophill. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.